Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes in a half shell. Turtle power.
I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. These guys have been long-standing mainstays of my childhood, and I still like them to this day. You got the many decades worth of cartoons, large number of video games, and those live-action movies that some of us would like to forget about.
No, whoa, chill. It's just a mask. See? Don't freak out. Right?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
However, there is one aspect people usually seem to forget about when talking about the Turtles, and that would be the comics, even though they're actually pretty solid overall. After all, it was the comics where the Turtles got their start, and that is what I'm going to be talking about today. So, let's go back to a semi-simpler time. A time without a pandemic in our midst. A time of color and intrigue. A time known as the 1980s. During the 80s, it's safe to say a lot of influential stuff happened. The Walkman, Madonna, the Cabbage Patch Kids. So many iconic things to come out of that decade. A lot of properties, media, and icons would get their start, or maybe even flourish in this decade. Video game legends like Pac-Man, Mario, and Mega Man got their start. Anime and manga series like Dragon Ball, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Fist of the North Star would set a strong foundation for other anime series yet to come. But most importantly for this video, the comics industry was really hitting its stride in this decade. We had some of the most popular and influential comic book stories to come out then. Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, Marvel's Secret Wars, Watchmen, V for Vendetta, Days of Future Past, all extremely popular comics from the 1980s and are considered beloved classics today. But in order to get to the main root of our story, we must go to the year 1984. It is there where two men, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, came up with the idea to make the TMNT after Eastman showed Laird a drawing of a turtle wearing a mask and having nunchucks strapped to its arms. When making the Turtles, they took inspiration from various comics, such as The New Mutants, Cerberus, Ronin, and Daredevil, with Daredevil being a particular major source, with the Turtles' mentor Splinter being their version of Daredevil's mentor Stick, and the Foot Clan being their version of the Hand. Putting all these stories together and, prestiging them, Eastman and Laird would create the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay, now that recap is done, let us talk about the comics. To start, I believe I should tell you that a lot of things you know about the TMNT universe are really different in this comic. For starters, April O'Neil looks nothing like we know her as today. I'm pretty sure we all know her as the spunky redhead, but in the comics she looks like this. So yeah, it's quite a change there. Casey Jones, whom we all knew as the Hawking-wearing badass vigilante, pretty much stays the same, but with an added dose of insanity. Personally, this version of him is one of my favorites. He reminds me a lot of a character from Watchmen. Just a normal person trying to be a superhero and suffering from some sort of issue in the process. Splinter is pretty much the same wise mentor-father figure, but has a bit of a dark side, because his goal isn't really righteousness, it all has to do with revenge. He literally trains the Turtles to be ninjas just so they can kill the person that killed his master. That's pretty messed up. Shredder is pretty much the same menacing bad guy we know him as today. The Krang seems like the most interesting villains, as they aren't really villains, they're just trying to protect themselves and are trying to get back to their home planet. But those guys aren't the main characters. So let's talk about the Turtles and see what they're like in the story. As you can tell, unlike in the media that came after, all of them wore red headbands like Raphael. I'm personally glad the different colored headbands came around so I can better identify each of them. Because while I honestly like the Turtles in the story, I do feel like they can be a bit one note at points. Leonardo is the leader and has some pretty cool lines of dialogue, but that's about all he is. Donatello does have some smart showings, but overall he just seemed bland. Michelangelo, though, he gets the worst of it. As my favorite Ninja Turtle, I loved seeing his carefree personality and proving himself to be a useful member of the team, even when his brothers might have been against him. But here he is just the other turtle. That's there. And Yeah. Raphael, however, stands out quite a bit amongst the group, and he's my favorite character in the entire series. Unlike his brothers, he has a notable personality, that of a rash fighter who is often destructive but cares deeply for his family. I like these scenes where he just talks to himself. Those parts are pretty interesting. And on top of that, he has some of the funniest moments in the series, like whipping his brother with the towel after getting out of the shower and accidentally breaking into a couple's apartment. His one-shot with Casey Jones is also my favorite out of these stories, as it gives us the beginning of Casey's origins and their friendship, as well as giving us a low-stakes fight with opposing viewpoints. Out of all the turtles, he definitely seems to have changed the least, even with the shifting in tone. Oh, speaking of that, you know how the turtles are pretty pacifistic nowadays? Well, they body some fools in this. There are some people that see this and will be like, wait, do the Ninja Turtles kill people? And personally, I'm not one of those guys. I'm not saying this didn't catch me off guard when I first read it, but if you don't see the word ninja in your title and think that they might kill people at some point, then I don't know why you would have ninja there in the first place. Thankfully, it doesn't feel overly violent or dark for the sake of dark, like some other comics tend to do, and it fits fairly well in the story. Also, the violence really complements the detailed black and white art style, and makes it seem more stylized. Speaking of which, I love this art. Even though it was supposed to be a one-issue comic, you can tell the guys who made this put a lot of work into it, and the settings and characters are really well drawn. I'm also surprised to see that this has some of the most iconic TMNT moments in it. Even though this is where it started, I didn't think kid-friendly shows like this would take inspiration from something like this. You get the Turtles' origin, Raph and Casey's fight, the TMNT on the Triceraton homeworld, and the battle with Shredder on the rooftops. So many iconic moments that came from a comic that is so very different from the material that came after it. Also, it's surprising to see how well this is aged. Sometimes comics can feel a little bit dated from what decade they are from. Even the TV shows seem to hold on to the TMNT's 80s roots. Granted, they don't overuse them, but they are still there. There is some dated stuff in this comic, but doesn't feel overly cringy. For the most part, this comic seems like it could be written today as a really good fan project. With all the TV shows of the TMNT out there, it's quite surprising that a lot of people forget about their start as comic characters. Honestly, with all the TMNT media being kid or teen friendly, it's very intriguing to see something different happen. I don't know why, but I personally love these comics. They almost seem like Elseworld stories in some ways. These comics should not exist. It should be impossible for something this weird to be this good, but against all odds, it is. There have been a lot of TMNT comics since then, and they have been pretty good, with an occasional stinker in the mix. Oh my god, get the f*** out of here, you guy! I honestly believe that these are some of the best comics they have to offer. And after all, without these, we wouldn't get the heroes of our childhood.